now legal across the state. What will each of you do to help repair the damage that these cannabis arrests have done to the individuals and families in Kalamazoo that have been affected by them?
Overwhelmingly, as a city and as a state, I feel like the voters have been pretty clear about what they want, right? Legalize recreational marijuana, right? And so I think we have heard this last week, we need to be efficient, friendly to that. And the reality is that this is what's happening. This is what's coming. And I think that the biggest obstacle that we face is that we have people who are still being prosecuted in the courts for previous charges before, people who were charged before for marijuana-related offenses. There's still people who are sitting in jail because of marijuana-related offenses. Like, we need to do everything we can to moving forward, that the city truly treats this as the lowest possible offense that somebody can be treated for. And the other thing, too, is I think that knowing that the state, the local, our local citizens are so supportive, we need to make sure that we're moving forward and making progress in terms of making the legalized recreational marijuana accessible in our community, because if we don't do it, Bangor is going to do it, Battle Creek's going to do it, and people are just going to drive over, buy it over wherever they're going to buy it from, and they're going to come back here and smoke it. And when I'm knocking on doors, it's kind of funny because there seems like the two most common questions that people ask me is they ask me, first of all, are you a Democrat or are you a Republican? And the second thing they ask me is, what do you think about legalizing marijuana? And the reality is for too long, too many people are being prosecuted and ruining their lives and setting themselves up for failure with felonies over something that should not be, right? So.
Yeah, I think in Michigan and Kalamazoo specifically, people have overwhelmingly supported the use of cannabis in our communities and for its legalization. I'm glad we finally got to that point. We've caught up to all the other states who decided to come before us and have already made progress in this area. As Chris said, I think that, of course, the arrests for cannabis have been primarily affected low-income communities of color. So I think in crafting our solutions and how do we go ahead with this just cannabis economy, that's where we start with, right? So we have to correct the harm where it was done. So that means we need to look at supporting businesses led by and owned by people of color in neighborhoods. Neighborhoods, of course, get to set their own sort of guidelines as far as where they want businesses and how, because that's also something that we should be dictating, sort of from above. We should let people decide where they need those to be. And to the greatest extent possible, we should make sure that when we can, we are rolling back charges for people or convictions for people that stem from those marijuana charges. I'm not sure of what jurisdiction we have to do that locally, but if there's a way we can do it, we definitely should.
Marijuana. So Kalamazoo just broke the world record for the highest THC content a couple of months ago. Marijuana is a big thing in Kalamazoo currently. I think there are lots of things that we could do to help right some of the wrongs that we've done, I guess. People have spoken. I think that it is only fair to try and work with the people and what they want. But I also think that we should be responsible about it. There's a lot about marijuana that we don't know. There's over 150 different cannabinoids and different things about marijuana that we don't know how they affect different people with different sorts of things. And but we have a lot of very smart biochemistry type people in Kalamazoo. So I think working with, again, bringing back Kalamazoo as a community, working together, trying to do it smart. I'm not really, I think that working with people that have been they've gotten the brunt end of things. I don't know, I grew up with friends that were poor and friends that were ridiculously well off. And they all, not all, a lot of them smoked weed. It didn't matter if they were rich or poor, it didn't matter if they were black or white, or anything. But we seem to kind of pick on certain groups of people with who we're going to prosecute. So I think that righting some of those wrongs is important. But some of those wrongs we can't right. Some people were hurt in ways that we can't. So that's a very interesting problem that we might run into on that. But I think including people in the process of learning about how this new industry is going to work and getting them involved is very important. Thanks.
Since cannabis was made illegal back, I think in the 30s, we've been creating more and more fear around it. I think now that it's legal, we still need to work on this fear-based thinking about how we treat each other and how we treat those who choose to partake. Again, walking and knocking on doors, talked to two gentlemen. One was trying to, at that moment, applying for a job with the city. And Mayor Hopewell happened to be there, and he said, no, he goes, you can have your record expunged. And they didn't know it. So I think some of the big things that we're going to need to do here are communicate what's happening with this new, with the new law, with people with records, and make sure that people with records can be, their records can be expunged. I do not know the legality of what's, how that would happen, but I know that it can. We do arrest people of color at greater rates than those. So I definitely want to make sure that our law enforcement has been properly trained, and in all of the ways of dealing with our community, from community policing to having people in neighborhoods and people making sure that we're communicating well about the laws and about how people follow them. Thank you.
Okay, so with everything, first and foremost, I'll say equity has to stay at the top, because when we're talking about marijuana, there's businesses and there's people who have been directly impacted. So as a commissioner, many of you know, we just had that, we had the first part of a meeting that had to do with marijuana. And we did it, we opted for delayed opt-in. Now my question is, how do we not cause or hinder the folks who are already in process, but still allow for that social equity piece to actually be in play? What kind of disappointed me, I read all the articles that happened after the commission meeting, and not one of them acknowledged the social equity piece. That is huge. So what that means is if we don't get that right as a community, the people who are supposed to receive those benefits will not. Kalamazoo was one of several cities in Michigan who was allowed this social equity benefit as it relates to marijuana businesses, which means that if you live in Kalamazoo or any of these other communities, you can get 25% off one of the fees. And then if you've been, if you have a conviction for marijuana, you can get another 25% off, and there's some other things in there as well. But disproportionately, people of color, we already know that through mass incarceration, have these issues. If we don't get this right, what will happen is people who live in Kalamazoo, who aren't disproportionately affected, can swoop in, get all these licenses, and then the people who have been affected won't be able to do anything. And so I'm not so quick to just pull the trigger. We gotta get this right, because we always rush and we always get left behind. And so that has to stop. And so with marijuana, with anything else, it's not necessarily, it's not about opposition, it's how we do this to make sure everybody gets to benefit.
I did want to say, many of you know me, I'm a very stalwart critic of the city. I'm always making those little critiques, but I actually do want to say I kind of tip my hat to what the city has done recently on cannabis. You can make some critiques around the edges around how things should have been expedited, whatnot, but the fact that there is a focus on social equity, that's something very important to me. Again, somebody who grew up in this neighborhood. I was very close and knew families that sold cannabis. Not to get extra stuff. You know what they always say in the mainstream media, you're trying to get rich or whatever. People using it to pay their electric bills. People using it to make sure food was kept on the table. And that's why, that is the population that we need to hone in on and make sure are lifted up by a marijuana economy in Michigan. I think Kalamazoo is definitely going to become a hub for the cannabis industry in this part of the state, especially as we see a lot of the kind of municipalities around us are opting out. We need to make sure that people who are part of the former underground economy are the ones who benefit. Now, talking a little bit about the justice piece too, from what I'm familiar with, the Kalamazoo, public safety and stuff, there are expungements going on. There are gaps. I have heard stories even since then, but I think something we need to keep an eye on too at the state level. Those expungements are not happening. We need to look what we do to help our brothers and sisters in Flint, some of these rural areas, etc. across the state. We need to become an activist city and say that we won't stand for that. I do have a cannabis platform. I think what we need in order, even for there's a lot more social equity programs to make sure that those low-income people can be involved in cannabis business. I would support a basically cannabis cooperative, which would allow some of the lowest income residents who are part of the former marijuana economy to basically buy into a communally owned business so that they could share and reap the profits and not be corporations.
All right. So yeah, I just want to hammer away what Patrese said, and Andy, I really do think that how the city's handling this process makes sense. Social or equity must be the #1 priority when we're talking about how to legalize marijuana in the city. But the city did make it very clear. We want it legal, and so we do need to be moving forward, but I really am happy to hear that the commission is making sure that the most marginalized, the ones that were affected by the war on drugs, are the ones who are benefiting from this. So everything that my understanding seems pretty clear that the city does have the authority to go and expunge those local records. And like they said, working on it needs to be a much more aggressive process. If we're going to legalize marijuana, and if we are going to allow people to go into a store and buy it, there should not be a single person in our community that still is being held back because of smoking weed. It doesn't make any sense. And then, next, a way that we can, continue assisting the people that were most affected. We need to make sure that we have equity. We need to make sure that people are getting the records expunged. But we're going to generate a lot of tax money off of that, off of the sale of weed. Like kind of Andy said, I think we will become a hub of Southwest Michigan. And so we need to make sure that those tax dollars are going to the affected communities as well. So we need to expunge records. We need to make sure that the tax dollars are going to assist communities that have been the victims of the war on drugs for centuries now, or for decades now. And,
Cannabis is legal in the state of Michigan. The law is clear on this. The law is also clear that the priority will be given to those most affected by the laws of the past. I agree with this as well. These are the things that have to happen. From growers, distributors, to the retail shops. What our city commission can do is to incentivize those things. I agree with everything that everyone said. I think to add to that our city can incentivize and help to train and educate those people that have been proportionally or disproportionately affected by helping them to understand. It's one thing to say, we're gonna let you have a business. It's another thing as a business person to say, are we gonna help them? Are we gonna help them to learn how to run a business? Who's gonna show them how to finance it? Who's gonna show them how to market it? Who's gonna show them how to negotiate contracts? All those types of things. I think our city can help with that. I think we can incentivize NGOs that have that skill to work with people that are trying to start their businesses and to keep that moving forward. The clock is ticking with the state. There's a kind of 3-year head start that the state granted for these priority businesses. And I agree that the city should have opted out, understand how we're going to adjudicate this and how we're going to run this in our city. The clock is ticking. We have to move forward as expediently as possible to get these programs running. The last thing that I will add is that as I walk around and shake hands and talk to people in the neighborhood, there are concerns in some neighborhood, kind of a not my backyard type of thing. So we have to be sure that we're talking to the residents in our neighborhoods. It's great to have this new business and this new controlled substance, but where do people want it? Where do they want it grown? Where do they want it distributed? Where do they want it sold? We need to find that out so that we can put it in the proper places.